Awesome. So call 15, the final crazy good call. So thank you so much for being here and for being your word and for committing and seeing the journey through and making as many of the calls as possible. Um, we've now got a full YouTube playlist of what I consider to be exceptional resources. Um, yeah, I'll actually make a note to resend that link to everyone in an email after this. And please feel free to use them with clients, with friends, partners, family, anyone that you think would be served by watching us talk about a particular distinction. Yeah, pass it along. And thank you for being a part of it and for making it so incredible.
Aw.
Yeah, yeah. So Living versus Dying, the shortest Steve Chandler chapter I've ever seen. And I was amazed. I'd forgotten. And I sat down this morning, first thing to reread. And I turned the page. I was like, oh, that's it. Cool. Um, but yeah, we'll be free with it and go in whatever direction. And with that in mind, Karen very kindly reminded me last week that you would also like to hear my thoughts. And I often riff back off people, and I love that. But I would also love to start us off this week. Um, I summarized it in the email that I sent. I find because it's such a short chapter and because living versus dying, I remember the first time reading it a few months ago, I thought, oh, this is a bit dramatic. Dennis is here. Bear with me. Welcome, Dennis. We were we're just getting into the chapter, living versus dying.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, well, I think it's quite open to interpretation, living versus dying. But what I really took from what was written down there um, is selfless service with no expectation of moral desert or reward or oh if I do good things, good things will happen to me. Zero expectation, no need for a recognition. And I saw that in the first section when he's talking about the podcast and the sort of legacy, or like, what do you want to be remembered for? He's like, why would I care? I'll be dead. But what he does want left behind is the impact that people are living as a result of either working with Steve or reading his books or engaging with his work in some form or another. Um, and that it is completely not about him, and it is about the lives that are being lived after he's moved on. Um, and then I saw it again in the second section about the, and we touched on this briefly last week, that not calling it the news, but what's wrong. And I love that. And it's something I've thought about at times. All of the daily heroes that exist that no one ever hears about. All of the daily acts of um, showing up for people, being strong for people, supporting people, loving people. And again, I loved the image of him sort of looking out the window at this other little house and him knowing what's going on in there, the magic that's going on there, and the power of a human relationship and support that's going on. And no one else knows. The world doesn't know. And that's very real, very real. Hence, I love that it isn't the news. It is what's wrong, very carefully curated to outrage and shock and scare and get your attention, in other words. Meanwhile, there are all of these local heroes every day that you'll never hear about. And I doubt many of them don't care. And that's the example I think that Steve Chandler is putting across here is you're not doing it for those reasons. You're not doing it so that you get recognition, so that you end up, I don't know, being validated on a large scale, but so that you are of service. And when you move on, not literally dying, I don't know, it could be retiring as well. Whatever it is, whatever you leave in your wake, there are people experiencing a better life. I fucking love that. So yeah, that's the main thing I took away from this. It's selfless, real service, absent of expectation. Karen.
Hi everyone. Um, I just recently, well, over the last year or couple of years, I've been trying to work, not work on my ego, just notice where it shows up and notice how unnecessary it is when it does. And so I have been struggling a little bit with, yeah, but like I don't want to leave a legacy. I haven't got that kind of ambition. Um, and I was I felt a bit lost at sea because I thought I ought to have one, but it didn't fit with the ego business. But this says everything, doesn't it? This sort of puts me back in my okay zone again, because the whole point of it is love. It said, if you're not living, if you're not loving, you're not really living. You're just getting up every day and walking around. Um, and so it's all going back to just being loving and serving, which is what he said the whole way through the book. And I love the fact that we've got a choice. Always there's a choice. I do watch the news every so often, only really to laugh at what they're choosing to tell us and to wonder why. Not because I believe it, I don't believe almost any of it. Um, there's no evidence for me, like I wasn't there, I don't know. So, oh, interesting. They're deciding to show us that. I wonder why. So I can watch it like that without getting so hooked in. I know there are such things as crisis actors. I know half of the stuff that we're painted of, same pictures that were reused 10 years ago. So I just find it interesting. But I really used to like Russell Howard's Good News. I thought that was a lovely antidote, and I wanted to share it with the kids. But there was so much swearing and sexual innuendo, and it wasn't appropriate. So I think we ought to do another one, but without all of that business, so that the younger ones can see how lovely the world is, and how everyone, not everyone, how people generally do want to help. The only time I see people not helping is if they're too scared for their own safety, or they think that they're going to get into trouble for doing it. Like I live next to a doctor's surgery, and there are people who fall over outside. There's car crashes turning in. There's all kinds of action going on where I live. And people are literally jumping out of their cars to help. And it's lovely. So oh yeah, and the other thing that I just really wanted to say, because I know there's loads of us, is that there's always a choice. There's always a choice to see that or not to see it. And when it goes on to like, today is a gift from God, what else could it be? If we looked at every day, well, today's a gift, or what more, of course it is. And then how that would change our experience. We wouldn't judge anything good or bad, because we'd be open to the possibility that, well, we don't know in another couple of days that really bad thing that happened today could be the very making of us. Or even, at the end of life, when you see, stories of great heroism and somebody has died, those families are connected, they're connected for life. There's a guy at my school that I work at, he's the business manager, and he's a hard business manager. He does what he has to do. And That's one of my little bit of my responsibilities that reports into him. And it's very much like, yeah, send me an email, send me a report, and we were a bit like that. And one day on an inset day, we just ended up sitting near each other because there's no kids in, we'll have dinner together. And he started telling me how he'd donated his bone marrow to a woman in America. As it turned out, he didn't know where it was going to go. He only got this lady another 2 years of life, but it was 2 years of good life. And the family still invite him over and all of his family for 2 weeks every year and treat him like an absolute king. And he's like, well, it was just one little thing I did. And they were saying, no, it really wasn't. And the generosity and the connections that they've got now, it's lovely. And it was just lovely to hear him speaking about it because I've only ever seen that businessy face on him. And funnily enough, like of everyone sitting around him, I was the one asking him loads of questions and stuff. And he's really different with me now. He's really different. We've got a great relationship now. It's not, it was very difficult to see past his job title to the person that he was. And, I think that might be true in so many different ways that we're all fundamentally very, very similar and all craving connection and love. And if people aren't showing it, it's because they're either too scared or they think they'll get in trouble. I'm not talking paedophilia. But yeah,
I'm really curious. I think you said crisis actors.
yeah.
I've never heard of this before.
Oh, yeah, you can like,
What is that?
well, they're people. I mean, sometimes it's like if there's going to be like a pretend bombing in London and they've got to do um a um oh, like a fire drill, but for all the emergency services, they'll put out a call to all the acting agencies for crisis actors, and they'll lie there looking dead, pretending to be injured, and then they'll get treated and like because somebody, like real bodies, not like models on the ground, and they'll act like they're injured or they'll act like they're dead. And so it's an absolute thing, and it can be used for the good, but it's also used to manipulate in the news. And there's quite a few clips of, people who are meant to be dead. Oh, here's a picture of a morgue. Oh, look. Oh, these dead people. And then one of them has a scratch. One of them's like got their head out smoking a cigarette, because they don't realize some news station is sweeping past at that moment. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. It's definitely a thing. And obviously, yeah. So, and I
Wow.
know people that have done it. So yeah. So it can be for a very good reason, but it can also be very manipulative.
Mm, mm, mm. That's so interesting. And I think it is always worth bearing in mind what the agenda is here. Nowadays, it's mostly get click through, get traffic running through a site, and then you generate income via advertising, etc., etc. I noticed this recently when we've had a bit of a heat wave in the UK. Now, a UK heat wave is really not that hot in the grand scheme of things, right? We're talking 22 degrees tops,
One day,
for one day at peak. It peaked at
just
20.
in the middle of that one day as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's like, and I saw a news article just, during the daily Facebook scroll, wildfire scare in the UK. So, mate, we've never had wildfires in the UK, unless someone starts something, and even then it's not going to catch on. Like, where is that coming from? Never seen that before.
Yeah. And
I
you
know.
said something. Oh, sorry, I'm interrupting. Carry on.
And I noticed the colours that they use to report the weather as well. Now it's this really dark, evil red, and it's like 15 degrees, you know. And I'm watching this as someone who's lived in the UK my whole life. I'm like, this is this is not, you know, this is kind of what happens in April. You know, we get some really nice days, and then it gets cold and miserable and wet again for 350 of the other days a year. Um, but I have found it interesting um, over the last, I'd say, like 10 years since I've been conscious of the news or like actively engaged with it. Um, just watching what sort of headlines are used or the language patterns that are used. Um, and and then going and looking in the comments, and there's always fights. There's always you said this, you didn't, and I'm just reading this. I'm like, what what's this for? This
I'm
isn't
not,
this isn't loving. This is just people getting angry on the internet.
yeah.
Wildfires that will never happen in the UK.
And the other thing that's interesting is how many people do see through it, and how many, like the weather thing's a great example. It used to be like a little sun, didn't it? That they used to stick on magnet sun, stick that on, and now it's like, ooh, we're
Yeah.
all going to fry. But so many people do see through it, and there's loads of people who are saying, "Yeah, no, chill," because fear sells, and fear controls, and if we know that there is a game being played, and I don't know why it's being played, but I know there is one. I don't need to know what the agenda is really. I know that we are kept small in a way by fear. So if they're going to make us fearful, we're not going to stand up and be the revolution or anything like that. We're going to let things just slide by.
Mm.
Um, And I just think that just knowing that there is manipulation going on is all that we need to do in a way. I'm not saying we don't need to stand up for injustice and things, but when you know there's a game afoot, then it's all just a game. And you don't have to be a victim of that game. And you don't have to play by their rules.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and whether I have conversations with friends, and some people um, are of the opinion that this is, and I don't have my mind made up on this particular topic. Some people would say this is part of a plan to keep people, separated, conquer and divide. That it's, that, or some people like, I don't know if this is a conversation that's happening in a boardroom. Either way, there is it spreads fear, or people experience fear reading this. And if I don't know, if people aren't privy to things like the inside out understanding, don't um, haven't had these conversations around the role of their thinking in their lives and how they interact with their thinking, then very quickly you're caught in a whirlwind of your thinking and fear and anxiety, and at that point it feels very real that life is happening to you, very real, and it can be quite a difficult thing to get out of.
Yeah, a victim and powerlessness. But that we always have that choice. That's what I love about this book. And he's alluding to it, isn't he? He's not going too deep into it, but he's just saying, that's another choice. You can look at the bad or you can look at the good. And your life will be whatever is a reflection of what you're looking at and how you're seeing things.
Love that. Thank you. Is there any more you'd like to share for now?
No, I might come up with something later, but I like to hear what other people have got to say.
Awesome. Dennis, I saw your physical hand go up. If you want to pop the digital hand up, if you wanted to share something, I'll go. We'll have a chat to Sean and Sash, and then Dennis, if you want to share something or not. That's also okay. Sean.
Well, I need to include Dennis because he's won the award for the by far the best t-shirt competition on the call tonight. Just to rocking it, dude. All you need is love. You know what I mean? That's what they said. Yeah, do you know what? So many things came up then with the conversation that and some of the things I had written down actually were related to the similar conversation of I guess the news and kind of how society is the flames of society are kind of fanned by the news. They create a furore around something, and then that gives them something to report on the fact that people are doing sort of or not being nice to each other and all this kind of stuff. And the image that came to me was a sock puppet. So it's like the people who are reporting on these events, let's call them, have kind of made their own sock puppet, and then they've forgotten that it's a sock puppet, and it's real. And it reminded me of a couple of characters in shows. So, for example, one of my all-time favorite cartoons from the 90s was South Park, and the teacher had Mr. Hat. Hey there, children! You know, it's Mr. Hat, and of course, this Mr. Hat had his own complete own personality, and you know, you go to hell, you die, and it's kind of. And there was a similar program that people probably aren't aware of over here, but not so much, called Trailer Park Boys. It's the guys in the trailer park in Canada, and Bubbles as his sock puppet, Mr. Socko, who kind of is the sort of the evil twin of his character. You know, and anything that gets said that's evil comes out of Mr. Socko's mouth, kind of thing. But he treats it like it's a real person, and it's got a mind of its own, and this kind of thing. And it struck me that's kind of how the news reporting stuff has kind of come about. They've created stuff and forgot that it's made up, and then again that feeds into the narrative of, like you say, the wildfire thing. It's kind of like it's so easy to manipulate a headline to create a perspective that you want to put ahead. And interestingly, it kind of comes right from the top. And well, I don't know that it's the true top, but if you look at things like in this country, whoever's in government at a particular point in time will come out with a set of policies and a set of what have you. And often the first thing they do is scrap all the ones that used to be set by the previous government, regardless of whether they worked or not, because it's their policy. And it's like, well, wasn't it kind of doing really well? Yeah, it was, but it was their policy, so therefore it didn't really work. And it's just like, really, it almost becomes this, the whole House of Commons thing where they're kind of shouting across at each other and all that. And I'm like, used to be like that in the playground in school when I was 8, and it's like, and you're thinking, these are the goons that are kind of telling us how to run the country. And then I thought, goony people, you've got to have your daily gym on this course. And of course, that made me think of Jim Carrey. And there was a couple of things that he says, I like to play characters that are free from concern so that people will be free from concern. And I'm like, what a gift that is, like going back to what we were saying before, the fact that it's not about sort of the remembering and what have you, but he's like, well, the reason I play these characters is because for that split second while people are watching it, they forget their own concerns and they're laughing at this goofball on the screen, And I'm like, that gift, and I think he even mentions it in that speech, the gift that he's given people is just to feel good and to laugh and to enjoy sort of being in that moment, and that's the best gift you can give anyone, is to make them feel good, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. It's that's what it's about, is that if you can spend your time helping other people feel good and feel better, then that's a great investment of time, you know. And it made me think of the 3P stuff when you were talking before as well. Because when we're part of a community, everything seems obvious, you know. The whole idea of the 3 principles and what have you just makes complete sense. But then when we have conversations with people outside of that community, it's like, are you some kind of, have you joined a special group here or what? You know, it's kind of, and they're like, you what? Because I remember having a conversation with an educated colleague of mine, you know, had all kinds of ologies and all this kind of crap. And I was talking about the intelligence of behind grass growing, you know, the fact that grass grows quicker in the summer, and something in nature has got that system built in so that grass grows quicker in the summer and actually has a little bit of a rest over winter. And I'm like, that's fascinating. And he's like, dude, grass hasn't got a brain. Grass doesn't know when to grow. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that it's a thought process, but I'm like, but that's just a cool system. That the grass is stimulated by the sun, and that stimulates this, and it sets this chain of events that takes place. And he's like, yeah, but it's not a conscious decision. And I'm like, I never said it was conscious. So, of course, I was trying to explain something, and he was just completely trying to intellectualize it. And I'm like, you're missing the point. You're missing that. You know, maybe that was just sort of the way I was describing it to him. But I find it fascinating that right. I was going to say, if you're saturated, if you're swimming in a pool of kind of sort of horrible water, then it makes sense that things look horrible and kind of smell horrible and what have you. And it reminds me of a post I did a couple of years ago about having dog shit on your shoe. And the thing I said was, you can go into the nicest palace in the world, or you can go into the swankiest hotel in the world, and all you'll notice is this place stinks like shit. Yeah. So of course, straight away you're associating it with what's going on around. Oh, I'm not going there again. Didn't have reek. It was horrible, that place. Or you go to a lovely beach and it's like, yeah, it looks all right, but there's an awful smell around here. You know what I mean? And it's like, mate, you've got dog shit on your shoe. You know, if you took it off, then actually it removes that. But if you've got shit on your shoe, everything smells of dog shit. You know what I mean? So regardless of where you are or what people say or what message comes through to you, if you're not realizing that that's the cause of the unpleasant odor, then until you do, things are going to look a certain way. You know what I mean? Yeah, and it just struck me, and I did jump the gun, didn't I, last week? Because I remember talking about the looking across the road and sort of the house across the way. And you're right, it's that the unsung heroes side of things. You know, there's no neon lights outside that house going, look, helping, you know, a recovering alcoholic here with big kind of neon arrows pointing to the front door and stuff. There's no the person engaged in that activity is doing it again for the benefit of they just want someone to feel better for, you know, however long it is, rather than for accolades and razzmatazz and what have you. Which strikes me sometimes that the social media machine, you can certainly see a lot of younger generations coming through now think it is about likes and clicks and that kind of thing, you know, rather than what's the point behind that, you know. Is the idea to just make somebody else feel better about themselves, even for a short period of time? Or is it, I've got a million followers here, you know? It's like, yeah, but you've never met any of them. And, you know, if you changed your shirt colour to this or you started following that team, you'd probably lose 500,000 of them, you know. You know, that's the lunacy of it. But I guess what we know, the inside job, don't tell anyone, is that you know, going back to last week, it's the pure love that's always going to drive the living. You know what I mean? And it's like one of those birthday candles that you can't blow out. You know, you can huff and puff and you can put your fingers on it and all this kind of stuff, and it'll just relight again. And that's the hope that we've got and that we can spread. You know, we are eternal birthday candles. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, did I cut you off?
No. I was just looking to see if I had anything else written down. The only other thing I wrote down, and I was just trying to remember what it was, because I'm quite cryptic sometimes when stuff drops in. Wizard of Oz. Right, Wizard of Oz. So the reason I wrote Wizard of Oz was, again, going back to the thing you were talking about, the distraction and what people see as being the sensationalized stuff. So in the film, everybody's in awe of the Great Oz, which is this kind of mystic green head thing that's kind of, you know, talks to people and controls everything and can grant all these wishes. But actually, it's a bloke behind a curtain. That's the real Oz. So all the pomp and triumph and all that, but he thinks he has to provide that to be seen in the great scheme of things, when actually all the gifts that he really gives out at the end are when he does it and he's been rumbled and he's like, oh, if you want a brain, there you go, have a diploma. Or you want a heart, there you go, here's your little stopwatch thing, you know. So the gifts, the real gifts that people found the value in, actually didn't come from the big mystic head in the sky. They came from the bloke behind the curtain. And that's it. I'm going to go sit behind the curtain now.
And Dorothy, he said to Dorothy, you've got it all already. You don't even need anything.
Boom.
I didn't remember that was said.
Yeah, all she needed to do was wish and she went home. He didn't do it for her.
She always had the power, yeah.
She always had the power, she just didn't know it.
There you go. That's Karen's mic drop moment.
Amazing, man. There's so much in there. I joined a dot between what you said about some things made up, and then you forget that it's made up. I'm in the beginning stages of making a document with Nick, and it's first couple of weeks cool, and it's been a little bit rough. I won't lie. Like writing all this stuff down and seeing, you know, sheet after sheet after sheet of your own judgments, beliefs, and it's like, fucking hell, this is a little bit heavy. But those are exactly that. They're things that were made up, and then we forgot that we made them up completely innocently, and then 20 years has gone by, and then you've just written it on a piece of paper. You're like, fucking hell, do I believe that? There was one that came through today, and I remembered the line went straight back to, I think, the moment it was created. Oh my God, so innocent. Just innocently, this thing was made up. I went, oh, you know, that's been said a couple of times. It must be, you know, me. Right, cool. And then this whole identity is just wrapped around this thing over years. And then in a moment it comes through. But anyway, I know that's not particularly on the living versus dying thing, but I saw the dots join there. I've got a really cool question. Maybe this is something that we could open up to the whole group, you know, once everyone's shared and said what they want to say. How do we communicate the three Ps? Because I have also had this challenge. I've had the challenge myself when I've been reading the literature. For example, I'm reading Nick's book at the moment, Just Play. Um, and I find myself sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm using this. I'm really thinking this over and over and over. And then sometimes I'm able to sort of let it wash over. I sometimes find, okay, how did I get this? How do I help other people get this? And I thought of that when you were, sharing about talking with your friend. And I totally get that thing. It's like, well, no, grass doesn't. I get his point of view. I can see the kind of thing, but there's also that missing. Oh, there's literally a book by Sid Banks called The Missing Link. There
Yeah.
is that missing link there. I don't know. Maybe once everyone's shared, maybe we could have an open discussion about how we have found we're best able to communicate stuff
Yeah.
that it isn't for the intellect. You've
Mm.
got to let it seep into you in a way.
It was interesting because I remember sort of years ago, I went to one of the 3P conferences down south, and I was in the lift with Elsie Spittle, and again, this was kind of a conversation of somebody else had raised it. It was in the lift and was like, they were saying, well, you know, they said to Elsie, well, how do you share the principles with people so effortlessly and that kind of stuff? And she's like, well, I don't share the principles. I share from the principles. And I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool. I like that. And then she levitated 3 floors up, so she didn't need to use the lift. It was kind of she didn't do that, by the way. She only went 2 floors. It was but it was and that for me was kind of, because when it first made sense to me, I just wanted to 3Ps the shit out of everyone. I really did want to just kind of, as soon as I got into a conversation with someone, I'm going to 3P you to within an inch of your life, you know. And it was like, and the issue thing, and it was just like, but that wasn't it. And she was just like, it's not about the words. It's not about, you know, mind, thought, and consciousness. It's not what you say. It's where it's said from. And it was interesting. A thought come to me there, Will, as when you said that, when you said about how do we help people see it, kind of thing. But of course, that we don't really need to let them see it because they've already got it. It's just that, again, they might not be aware that that's the label that kind of, you know, we would describe it as, or, you know, but yeah, everyone's got it, you know. Even sort of Big Vern in Cell Block 6, who's kind of killed multiple people, has got access to the same wisdom we have, you know. But has probably completely lost sight of it, or has built up enough of those stories that have kind of obscured the view, you know, put static in the way. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I love that, man. Share from the principles, not share the principles. I love that.
Yeah.
On a side note, I had a chat with Dr. Rani Bora this morning, so thank you very much for connecting us. Sash, I think I recommended her book, How to Turn Stress on Its Head. If anyone else has read that, it's awesome. If they haven't, I highly recommend. She's a psychiatrist working from the 3 principles, and it was fascinating hearing something at one point that, from my perspective, seemed at odds. I was more surprised, perhaps, that a psychiatrist was not using traditional therapeutic models, and, you know, her and Dr. Bill Pettit have gone, no, this is this whole paradigm that really helps people. So, If anyone wants to look in that direction, I want to signpost. There's a couple of people doing really awesome stuff with the three Ps. Um, yeah, thank you, Sean. Really appreciate
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's a good egg. Good egg is Rani. Yeah.
it. Awesome. Is there any more you'd like to share?
No, I'm good.
Thank you
I'm,
very
I'm
much.
sunny and shade enough. Oh, got to keep the music going. Yeah.
Thank you, man.
I'll mute so I don't sound like a Dalek or a Scouser.
Oh, amazing. Sash.
I don't have a lot to share, but there was one thing, just as Karen was talking about the news and like the photos and things like, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, Will, but there's a photo that always gets shared every year in the peak of summer of Brighton Beach, where it's like full to the brim, right? There's like deck chairs, like literally every. I don't think Brighton Beach even sells deck chairs. Like I don't think you can even get deck chairs on the beach. And yet there's always this one photo that goes around every single summer, and the Argus always goes like, Londoners come down to Brighton, like, and like, destroy the beach kind of thing. And it circulates, and it's really funny because I live about 2 minutes from the beach, and if you walk over on that day that they release it, it's like there's no one there. And you'll have people comment on Facebook, they're like, they'll take photos and they're like, this is the timestamp of the beach right now, like you're being lied to. So yeah, that was probably actually the main thing that I was going to share. But I think the one thing, maybe a couple of things with this chapter is I liked that it was so short because it's so simple and it like just gets to the point and there's no more that needs to be said. And I think where he talks about the sirens, that really really kind of hit with me, is where he's saying, oh, if you hear an ambulance or sirens, it's really like natural and automatic to go, someone's in fear, someone's like being hurt, like something bad is happening. And he said that he actually finds it as like a comfort now because it means that someone's going to help someone. And I find that so interesting how everything, no matter what, always has like that choice of it being a good thing and comfort, or you can choose for it to be like a fear. And I think this really chapter just like spoke to me is that it's all about those small, tiny little details and choices that you make every day. It's like with everything that comes up in front of you, is how you're gonna choose to react to that or choose how to deal with that. Um, and I definitely find I slip out of it. Like I forget that I have that choice. And that's when things become a bit chaotic for me. And then I kind of feel like I wake up and I'm like, oh, I do have a choice in this. Like even the way that I spend my morning, I have a choice. And just those really small things, I think, opens up in providing that love and that help to other people because um, you slow down and remember you have that choice and you think more. I think like you just like when you're in conversations with people, or you just think with a more loving way with that choice kind of underlining all those decisions that you make. Whether you're just gonna react to a message and just answer their message, the simplest way you could, or actually think about it and go, okay, how can I help this person? Or, how am I going to actually be present in this moment? So I think that was the main thing for me with this chapter. Just choosing to live 24/7 as much as you can.
I love that about the sirens. And I thank you because you've helped me see it from just a slightly different perspective. I actually had one of those "it's all right for you, Steve" moments when I read that. So I find them really bothersome, and blah blah blah. And thank you for now that I'm too tired to be judgmental. I I can see it differently. So thank you. And by a show of hands, who else forgets? Who else falls out of all of this? You know, we 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 do. We forget, then we remember. It's a direction. And Nick Bettini, uh, something he said, I can't remember when. It's really stuck in my mind. Mastery is a direction, not a destination. It in itself is a choice to go a certain path. And it's not that we reach a point and go like, I'm fucking the most enlightened person, and done, completed it. I'm at that level. And that we do. We forget, we remember.
Yeah.
It is a direction.
I love something that Nick says. It was so simple, but just like one thought away. You're one thought away of like going the other direction. And that, like, I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Like, I just noticed to myself, and I'm like, nope, just the next, like, my next thought, I have a choice over. I lost it for a bit. Make a conscious choice and make it, and like, let it go that way. And I think that's really so powerful.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, thank you. Particularly the siren bit. I love that. And I also have a funny Brighton story to share. And you're absolutely right. I know I can picture the photo in my head, and it's so deceiving. I don't know when this photo must have been taken, but it must have been the busiest Brighton beach has ever been. But it's rinsed every June and July. It comes
Yeah.
out, and there'll usually be a different sort of headline. Whatever sort of you know popular at the time, whatever thing wants to be pushed, they'll caption that. Um, and yeah, they love the London thing. Bloody Londoners come down here, leave their rubbish everywhere, and then go back up. So again, division. And as I said earlier, whether it's being done on purpose or not, I don't have my mind made up on that. But there is an effect of us versus them. And then people go, well, hang on, that's my beach. And it's my council tax bills that clean it up. And then these fucking people come down here and make it all happens. And I saw division and fights in a place I was wondering, but anyway, I'll get into it. And it was such an incredible um, example of how little it takes to divide people and get people fighting amongst each other. I'm not a football fan, but last Father's Day, a friend of mine and his dad were going to a little enclosure by St. Peter's Church at centre of Brighton, about 2,000 cap, sort of fenced off area, and they showed the football. It was England versus I can't remember if it was Euros or World Cup, no idea. Um, they were showing it, and the enclosure had been divided into a sort of smaller VIP section at the front with some benches. And that was really the only difference. You could sit in the VIP bit and you had to stand in the rest of it. Um, I didn't realize it was VIP, so I walked in with the confidence of someone that genuinely believed they could go there, and I didn't get stopped. So I ended up on that side of it. Anyway, at some point, at the halfway point of the game, someone from the general admission threw a beer into the VIP bit, and someone turned around and threw a beer back. And it was about a minute before punches were being swung. And I just took a step back and I was standing there with my beer watching this. I was like, hang on, we're all England fans? We're literally all on the same, we're supporting the same team. We've all come here and paid money to watch the same team. And there are people going at each other. Like full on, they're trying to take each other out. And all it took was a metal railing and paying £5 extra to sit on a bench nearer the screen. Literally no difference at all. The perception that there were two sides there, and that's all it took for people to swing punches.
Wow.
And it absolutely blew my mind. And I remember saying this to my friend who's like, I don't know, mate. I just, it's not that deep. I don't know, man. He was a few beers in, but yeah, it was a very profound moment to see that. Um, just how little it took. But yeah,
Wow.
very funny. Is there any more you'd like to share, Sash?
No, I think I'm done. Thank you.
We'll email that photo when it comes up on.
Yeah,
We'll
I'll
send it out to everyone.
if I get bored one night this week, I'll find all the articles I can find associated to that process. Because it's got to a point where I've seen it so many times that I could probably close my eyes and imagine like the umbrellas and what colours they are and where they are. Like it's that I've seen it that many times.
Rinsed and repeat. Yeah, I'll make a collage of it. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Elizabeth.
Oh, thanks. I don't have much new to add, just really echo what Sasha was saying. I really enjoyed the bit about the sirens too, because I could personally relate to that. Like there was a time when I'd first moved to New York and my dorm was across the street from a hospital. And it was like right after 9/11. And so the siren seemed so intense, so intense. And and did for a while. And then when my son was really young, he was obsessed with fire trucks and police trucks. And every time one would go by, his mouth would just drop. And he would be in such awe of this like magnificent thing. And it real and sometimes we would take a walk down to the fire station and walk by like the big fire truck. And one time a fireman came out and asked if he wanted to climb up on it, and he like climbed up and like poked around and got to sit on it and like ring the bell. And um it really, when I read this bit in the book, I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's all just in our it is such a choice, and all in our thinking around it. And I loved that you brought that up, and I just wanted to share that bit too. And I also loved the bit, the choice for living, like the choice that comes before all other choices. I loved how he phrased that. I thought that was cool. And it all comes, the choice for living, and the choice for love. Like that's really what it's all about.
The choice for living. Which bit?
Yeah. 192.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing.
193. Across the street, I could see the choice that has to come before all the other choices, the choice for living. And that was the choice for service and love.
Well,
Yeah. And it's in the same bit of the sirens, the sound of someone helping someone else. Now the sirens are relaxing. Ah, I just thought that was brilliant. Oh, sorry, that was loud. Yeah.
I wrote down earlier, I think it was something maybe Sean shared, the power of the mind. And I thought I had, 3 years working with Nick one to one. I started to go, oh yeah, and I've got a good grasp of this. And yet I keep having experiences that really, really underline actually how insanely powerful it is. Uh, Last week, for example, absolutely exhausted. Um, just just spent on every level, near the end of domino. It's been like an athlete's, like a few months of really intense sort of focus and everything. Um, and yet as the week went on and I wasn't replying to messages and I was letting things slide and the flat was getting messier and messier. Just the level of judgment going on up here. I genuinely perceived my life to be falling apart. I had that experience of like, oh, the dishes have piled up and I haven't been to the gym and I'm getting takeaways and oh my God, this is how it ends. You know, getting really, really dramatic and all this. And then yesterday, it took me about 3 hours. I blitzed the flat. I went through my calendar, just made a list of all the things I didn't get done, went, cool, I've got 4 hours free today. I'm going to blitz through that. And just like that, my whole experience, I'm looking at it all completely differently. And again, it was such a reminder of like, wow, this is powerful. What's going on up here and how it paints your reality. And what's so powerful about this book and why it grips me so much is it's giving you part of a key to that or a deeper understanding or it's helping you to empower yourself by going, well, no, hang on, there is choice. Again, it's not that we reach a destination, but there's a direction here. And we can choose to walk in that direction. And on that path are all these choices we come across and we play with them and create with them. And yeah, yeah, I love that. Is there any more, Elizabeth?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Thank you. Sash?
It's interesting, Will, because I've had the same experience, like all of, because I went away for 10 days and then I came back and no, like when I go on holiday, like obviously all the responsibilities, it's just like they don't exist anymore. Like life is completely fresh. And then when I came back, like my house, I was like, oh my God, I should probably do this, I should probably do that. My house is a mess, like need to get on top of my life. And all of that reality just like hit me in the face on the first day back. And then I felt myself getting caught up of like to the point where I was like, I'm going to redecorate the house. I need to buy all new furniture. Everything's wrong. Like, I need to switch up my entire life and fix everything all at once. And I started like really getting into it over like a couple of days. And then conversations that I've had with Will and coaching and everything is saying that we've spoken about of like the shoulds, you know, I should do that versus actually wanting to do something. And so I just kind of like woke up and I was like, now it's just becoming stressful. Like at the start, it was, oh, this is exciting. I'm gonna like buy loads of new furniture, and then the language turned into a stress, like a stressful situation. And then I had this moment, I was like, I'm not enjoying this anymore. So why am I doing it? Like, what is like at the start when the thinking started, it felt fun and it felt experimental and like colorful. But then that language changed and I noticed it and I was like, I'm gonna stop doing it. Let's stop it. Just don't give in to that and like make that choice to go back and be like, okay, it was fun for a couple of days. It doesn't mean that I have to keep continuing it. It's no longer fun. Stop. And you know, that's okay. Um and just as you were so kind of saying that as yeah, you get caught up in this like world. And at the start, I think sometimes it comes from a really good place to begin with of like either nurturing yourself or you know you're wanting to see improvements and it's when that as soon as that language changes it feels like it slips and it can happen sometimes so quickly.
Hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. And again, well, first of all, you made a choice there. Love that. Second of all, it's always fascinating. Um, I, who was saying this earlier? I can't remember if it was Sean or Karen. We're all fundamentally incredibly similar, and we all share these experiences. And the other thing I wanted to share, if I may, an observation, and I recognize this in the language I use as well. Coming back from that holiday and going like hit with reality, I wrote down here, like, is it reality or do we get hit by our thinking?
Mm.
Do we come back and all of a sudden it's, I'm fucking behind on everything and I should have done this and I should have done and this needs to be, and then and while I'm at it, I'm going to get a new sofa because look at it, it's just fucking, and that's what I'm wondering there is, and we do, we that's a really common phrase. Like you'll hear people coming back from a holiday, it's like, oh, back to reality, or like back to my life. It's like, it's all our life. But again, I'm always just, and I'm not professing to have the answers. This is stuff I'm really curious about and I'm working on. It's like, what are we calling reality and what are we calling the thoughts projected onto reality, the interpretation of reality?
Yeah, and we like to forget like our own experience. Like when we were going through Domino, I was like, all these people, they're doing so much, and I haven't done anything over the last week. I was like, that's because I wasn't in the country. I was on holiday, like enjoying myself, and like that's allowed. And then when I was back, I was like, but I'm so bad. I haven't done this and I haven't done that, and it's like our minds just forget like why or the situation we were in. It's so easy to start comparing of, even though it's not like for like, it never is.
Mm. Mm. Oh, there's a couple of things in there. The word allowed, that's a powerful one that I'm playing with now, and it's amazing. The more and more I look in that direction, the more I notice how little I allow myself in my own life. It's like this very sort of rigid, like facing thing, and little deviations. I'd be like, oh no, but that's not the plan. Back in line, etc. And the more I play with allowing, the more flexible things are feeling, the more fun it feels. So I just wanted to share that. And the other one, yeah, for those of us here who are on Project Domino, last week was the penultimate week, and we did a self-acknowledgement kind of thing. It was sort of thinking back over the last 3 months and a bit of a reflection thing. I don't know about any of you who are on it. I found it quite difficult. I was like, oh, what have I been doing over the last 3 months? What have I doing? I was writing things out, and I was like, oh, okay. I did eventually get some things out, but it did make me think. I was like, I think self-acknowledgement, and Devon really helped me with this. I was in a breakout room with him. Devon Seegers, if anyone knows him or doesn't know him, get to know him. Um, and he was like, well, have you thought of self-acknowledgement and receiving your wins as a skill? Like allowing yourself and thinking of it as a skill you can develop. And so this week, every evening, I'm going to sit for a few minutes and write self-acknowledgements for the day and just play with that for a week and see what happens, because we do forget, and I think that kind of, I think we can help ourselves, have some systems to help ourselves regularly remind ourselves and check in and get some perspective, because it's so easy, I think, to go zoom
Yeah.
into the autopilot. And I think it's in those moments where, especially if we haven't fully integrated some insights, we can risk forgetting and sort of chugging along or falling back into old stuff, and having some system in the, diarized. It's like, right, 5 minutes every evening, I'm just going to acknowledge, I'm going to write it out and say it. I'm curious to see what happens after a week of doing that. So again, just wanted to share that, as I'm going to play around with that and experiment. And if any of you choose to do something similar, I would love to hear how it goes. Was there any more, Sash?
That's everything from me.
Thank you. Awesome. Karen.
Sorry, I clicked a screen, took me off. I couldn't find the volume button because I couldn't see it. Anyway, here we are. I did. Ankush, when he went to see Steve Hardison, he came back and said, I've done this thing, I've written X number of pages acknowledging myself. I suggest you do the same. So I did. And I haven't finished it, but I spent hours and hours last summer while my daughter was in the paddling pool, writing acknowledging myself and stuff. And I found it quite easy at first because I was going quite, I've done loads of things. I thought, oh, I should acknowledge myself for doing this kind of stuff. And then I always say I'm not one for the kitchen. I'm not at one with the kitchen. But actually, there are certain things that I cook that everybody loves more than like, oh no, I can do the other thing. So I haven't read it. Funny enough, I came across it last week and I had a quick read through it. And I think it's really, really useful. And I think it's the same as the document to remind ourselves who we really are. Because I think we're wired into fear for survival. The negatives are likely to be the thing that kill us. So we're looking for them, whether, unconsciously. So I think we're always going to be not fighting, but there's, if you think about here we are on a road, there's something always going to try and push us off the track, and we just have to like, no, you're all right, and go back on it again. I think, and when you think about, Steve Chandler's done this amazing book and many amazing books, like, wow, he's turned his life around and how beautifully he puts things. And yet he's got a lifelong commitment to go and see Steve Hardison because there are bits that he doesn't see. And I just wanted to say, because I've heard a few people say, oh, Nick said this, Nick said that. Let's not turn anyone into some kind of guru, not even Sid. Sid just got something from somewhere else. He was the person that gave it the name mind, thought, and consciousness. And I would have picked different words that are less confusing, like thought. That's really confusing because people think of it as thinking. So, it's all available. And there are other philosophies outside of the three principles, which have also got very similar understandings. So I think to remember that we've all got this capacity, that nobody is more special than anyone else, and that we are the ones that can help each other. Yeah, there's some people that are really skilled at doing it and have done it for longer and might be able to get there a bit quicker than us. But ultimately, they're still going to have their own blind sides as well, and because they are human. So to not put anyone on a pedestal and therefore put yourself below it. Because yeah, like you said earlier, well, we've all got this. We've all of us have got this capacity. Oh no, it was Sean in the prisons. We've all got this capacity, and no one's got more of a right to it than anyone else. And we're all going to not see it at times, and that's where we can all help each other.
Yeah, that reminds me of a conversation I had with a fairly recent guitar student. And he's been playing a few months, and he's getting into bands and going and bashing out some chords in this. And I think he had his first rehearsal experience of a jam. And he's like, I feel like shit. I didn't know what to play. And some of the other players are a bit more experienced. They've been playing, I like him because he's got some guts about him as well. He'll show up in a room and go like, yeah, I want to fucking play. And I see that drive to put himself in situations where he can learn. But he had that experience I'm sure we're all familiar with, where you find yourself in a room and a bunch of people are doing stuff, or maybe there's a conversation, or they're playing in a way you're like, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure what to say back or what to play. In his case, I don't know how to just make stuff up on the spot. And he's quite down about it and all this. And the conversation was effectively, the music's already there. It's all of that creativity. It's not in the instrument. It's not in logic. It's not, and Hans Zimmer says this. It's like the creative process doesn't take place, on the iPad or in the grid or on the instrument or in the technology. It's like that happens way before. And so the process of learning an instrument is just like your hands just need to coordinate in a way together. You need to, and visually, you need to be able to, there's some coordination and some visual stuff, some mechanics stuff, there's some sort of theory and sound recognition stuff, but all of that can be taught. But the creativity, the music, the feel, the passion for it, that's way out there. That is in the world of the formless. And so, yeah, you're right. There are people who have got skill in the world of form. A great coach will have studied certain questions and certain patterns of questioning, and perhaps will study NLP. Will really be observant of the energy that they're in when they're speaking someone. So form world stuff, they get really good at that. But we've all got the formless. That's the downloads that you talk about, Karen. That's coming from somewhere else. And we all have those moments of genius where we'll say something or do something like, fucking, where did that come from? Or you sit down and you compose, you write a song, and like, I don't know where that came from. How many songwriters describe it like it came out?
Yeah, I've had that.
It just came out.
In seconds.
Where does it come from? I don't know.
Not me. Because the ones I've written that I've consciously written were shit. And the ones that just happened were much, much better.
Yeah.
But funnily enough, the best I ever played as a drummer was when I was playing with Neil Murray, bass player from Whitesnake and currently in We Will Rock You. He's really good, and I think he's got a degree. He's just very, very good. And I played the best I ever played when I was playing with him as a rhythm section. But he wasn't playing the drums. I was. You know what I mean? There was I don't know. Yeah, I felt like when you rise up to someone else's level, rather than for your little guy, rather than thinking, oh, I'm shit, I'm out. Like I was literally rising up to his level rather than him pulling him down to mine. But and I put all of that to him. I think, oh, he's done that for me because he's really, really good. So it's really easy to play with a really good bass player. But actually, I was the one playing the drums. So that was another nice, it was slightly different to what you were saying, but yeah.
No, but still completely relevant because we're circled back to self-acknowledgement.
Yeah. Have we lost Dennis?
No, Dennis is here.
I can't see him because I've lost my screen. I've lost everybody. Oh, there he is.
Walk to the sound of my voice. Come to the sound of my voice. Do not go to the light. Do not go to the light.
And I'm thinking,
come to the sound of my voice.
And if anyone's qualified to speak about living versus dying, go, Dennis.
You think that's funny? Now you're going to do dying jokes?
Well, yes, but it is from the other side of it. But
Get the fuck out of here.
I can't believe you haven't said anything yet.
That's just because I'm just sitting here being alive and enjoying it. I don't have to have an opinion about that. Breathe in, breathe out. I love you, Karen.
Oh. Was there any more? Anyone wanted to share? Sean.
I'll do round two. Yeah, there was a couple of things, and something about the self-acknowledging thing occurred to me. Um, and again, this is obviously speaking from my experience because it's the one I'm experiencing at this point in my multi lives, whatever it is. But generally, I find with stuff like that, there's a tendency that we think, and when I'm saying we, obviously, I'm talking in the royal we sense because I can do that with my hands. But there's a tendency that kind of the acknowledgement have to be sort of grand and earth shattering, and we go looking for those ones because I can't write it down if it's not going to be, a massive impact on what I'm seeing in myself. And that made me think about a lot of the distinctions that Steve covers in the book of just for today. You know what I mean? Just for now. It might be just for this minute. What's the acknowledgement for this? And then it might be, right, for this morning. What's the, for today? And noticing the little things in that sense. That sometimes it's really easy to overlook, and if we've got those acknowledgements, or if we're able to be open and acknowledge ourselves and see the brilliance in that, sorry, I'm only giggling because I just got Blink 182 in my head, all the small things, just kind of yeah, song and everything. And yeah, that for me was kind of like, yeah, it is. It's that. It's just this step. It's an accumulation of all the small things, and even the big things are an accumulation of the summation of the small things. Yeah, and that stood out for me in terms of how. And I suppose it goes back to something we talked about a few weeks back in terms of having insights, or the ability to have insight, or what insight looks like, and it's everybody has them, but we just don't, or we might not label them as that, and we talked about things like that, and the insight envy, that somebody's had a better insight than me, and it's like, yeah, it's not the fact that people have got a monopoly or are fishing in a different insight pool. It's just that they were tuned into something at a particular time, and it kind of made a lot of sense to them. But everybody has them, and that made me think of Roy Orbison. Anything you want, you got it. Anything you need, you got it, baby. We've already got it. Like Sid said, what you're looking for, you're looking with.
Man, I love that.
The impression, or what he said.
What I took, a couple of things I took from that. One, the reminder that at any given moment we're experiencing ourselves in a snapshot time, and actually that I hadn't thought about it quite in that way. I've used that term snapshot, but framing that as a reminder to myself, perhaps during a particular experience, or creating a judgment, or experiencing a judgment of myself, going like, the snapshot, man. This is just it at that moment. And you're absolutely right with the insight thing. How many things went behind that? One person has a particularly good night's sleep. They're feeling really refreshed in a call. They're feeling really on it, inspired, etc., and they're tuned in a way. But that is just a snapshot.
Mm.
It's a different story. That take the same person, the same curious mind, but terrible night's sleep, hasn't eaten properly, spread too thin, and they're like, What? I don't understand it. Yeah, it's only ever a snapshot. And the other thing I took was, oh, what was it? Well, I can't remember exactly what you said, but what I took away from it was removing urgency. What was it you were saying? I can't remember the exact words, but it sounded like it was about doing a little bit.
Again, with you saying that, I suppose it's that noticing the summation of moments rather than it being, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I took from it. Again, another thing of I think I interpreted it as actions, a summation of actions.
Yeah, yeah.
Like remove the urgency and just like 1% a day, if that is enough.
Yeah, because we can only ever be, we can't be in 10 minutes
Yeah.
now because we just can't do it. We can only be in the now.
Yeah, I love that. Is there any more?
No, it's good for me.
Thank you. Is there anything else anyone would like to share before the closing statements? No? Are we complete? For now, more to be confirmed. Everyone, thank you so much for co-creating this. Everyone, as I said at the beginning, everyone has created this, and I think it's been an awesome experiment. And there's some incredible evidence of our time together, which I will send in an email after this. So thank you. As I said, there are some messages I do need to get back to, so apologies for the delay. But yeah, there is a Power of Systems book club. I'm getting a little bit closer on when I feel would be a good time to do it. Everyone who has done Crazy Good gets first refusal, see if it's a good fit. We can have one-to-one calls about exploring that. And yeah, love you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
bringing
Will.
it all
Yes,
together.
thanks for
And
curating.
thank you,
Love
everybody.
you.
And all the people that aren't on this call as well that have been contributing as well.
I just
Really
love it.
appreciate you all.
Amazing. Speak to you all soon.
Cool.
Oh, thank
See you later,
you.
folks.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Ta-da.
Bye, everybody.